next guest is really, really pretty. And she also lived in upstate New York for 21 years, taught at Ithaca College literature, and then she just decided 3 years ago to pack up all of her stuff and move to LA. She put everything in her car, she moved to LA. I think I actually met her right around that time. And she's been telling stories all around LA, and she's been on Unfictional. Have you guys heard that on KCRW? Twice, and she's got another one coming up soon. So, yeah, you got to look out for her. Let's welcome to the stage Kirsten Wasson. Woo!
So in 2010, my son Jonah and I went to Manhattan to celebrate his 18th birthday. We stayed in a hotel in Chelsea, which was our favorite neighborhood in New York City. And once we got in the room, we checked out the view, and Jonah claimed the bed by the window. And then when he went into the bathroom, I strung up balloons, blew them up really fast, and then strung them up, which was a tradition that, of course, he was too old for. And I thought when he got out of the bathroom that he would probably be annoyed. But instead, he just threw himself on the bed and said, "You always come through with the balloons, don't you, Mom?" We've been coming to New York City, a 4-hour drive from Ithaca, where we lived, since Jonah was small. It was a splurge. I was divorced and an adjunct professor, but it was worth every cent. Right from the get-go, Jonah loved the city. He loved the museums. He loved trying different kinds of food. He loved walking around Central Park. And he also loved hailing cabs, which he learned how to do when he was 7. He just looked at some businessmen, some Manhattanite men, and watched them do it, and then he just hailed a cab. And right around that time, when he was 7, I noticed that my son had this long-legged, broad-shouldered, head-up kind of way of being in the world. It was surprisingly masculine. I wasn't close to my dad, and I didn't have brothers, and I couldn't figure out where this came from. When he was one of the men in black for Halloween, he looked right at home with his tie and suit and black glasses. He had this stance. So we always came to the city for his birthday, and this year, the big 18, I knew I was going to have to share him with his very close friend Paul, who was a freshman at NYU. I was very proud of my almost 18-year-old. Jonah's dad and I got divorced when he was 3, and when he was 11, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And so he tested his blood sugar about 10 times a day. And then when he was 16, he got into a terrible accident, and he was in a wheelchair for a while. He couldn't go to school. He stayed at home, and he was really dependent on me for way too many things. And he was on Vicodin, and he had a hell of a time getting off. So for our first night in the city, we went to a Broadway show about a struggling musician, and this guy was confronting some demons. Jonah was wrapped, but at a certain point, his leg kept shaking in a weird way, and I put my hand out to stop his leg from shaking, and he pushed me away, and I realized, okay, he's almost 18. I can't do that kind of thing anymore. So at the end of the show, he was very ready to leave and go meet his friend Paul, and I told him to please be back by 12, and he was back at 12:30. And the next day we went to the Museum of Modern Art, and he stood in front of each painting, Jackson Pollock, Jasper Johns, de Kooning, and looked at those paintings and breathed them, inhaled them, as if he could smell the art. He loved blues guitar, and he loves art. I was bored after an hour. So that evening, he was again going to meet Paul for pizza dinner, and I went and met a friend nearby, and when I came back, to my surprise, Jonah was already back and in bed, and the room smelled sweet. And I looked at him, and he was kind of motionless, and then I noticed that there were two cartons of ice cream melting next to him on the bed. The balloons were kind of deflated. The TV was blaring. Something was wrong. In one instant, I knew he was fucked up on drugs. And this wasn't ordinary 18-year-old, I'm my own man now partying kind of fucked upness. This was the sleep of someone in trouble. My son. I knew. I'd not known. I'd known. I'd not known. But now I knew. He opened his eyes and smiled dreamily. Mom. Mom. Jonah? Jonah. 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 His eyes opened, his eyes closed, and then, like a reflex, which it was, he grabbed his glucometer, put in a test strip, pricked the back of his arm, tested his blood sugar. It was 200. He touched his pump, gave himself some insulin. The kid was wrecked, but he was still testing his blood sugar and giving himself the proper amount of insulin. So then he was just lying there in that mess of ice cream, and I let him lie there while I found his backpack, and I looked in the backpack, and I found what I'd known and not known. There were pills. There was Vicodin. There was Oxycontin. There were containers. Some were labeled and some weren't, and some were prescriptions to other people. And there were straws cut in half and a razor, which is for snorting. I found out later. And as agonized as I was about his state, as well as racked with guilt, I also felt a surge of relief. Now I knew. I tried to remember how long it had been that I'd been trying to figure out if his smoking pot was a lot more than other kids, and if there was other stuff going on. I checked his room all the time when he wasn't home. I didn't know to look behind the speakers. So I'm feeling this kind of strange relief and looking at my son in his hotel room bed where we were supposed to be celebrating his 18th birthday, and he's swimming in ice cream and opiates. So I got him mumbling up off the bed. He's 6'2", 180 pounds, into the other bed, and I washed his face and hands. His eyes opened and closed. He didn't seem to mind. It was strange looking at his man body, him letting me push him around, treat him like a little boy. I made my bed on the floor. I knew what I knew. Tomorrow, I was going to take Jonah back to Ithaca, and I was going to get him into a rehab. But I lay there on the floor wondering, can I convince him to go to a rehab? The light went from pitch black to barely gray. Every once in a while, I stood up to look at his back and shoulders to make sure he was breathing. I knew how to take care of a sick little boy. But this boy had just turned 18 and was supposed to be a man. And a man wouldn't have to do what I say. Around 5 a.m, I heard his voice. Mom, you always come through with the balloons. Okay, I don't know if he actually said that. I heard it. And I just started to repeat over and over to myself, he'll do what I say. He will do what I say. Well, it has been 7 years since Noah's 18th birthday. Jonah, thanks. For the record, he did go to rehab and he got sober. And he was sober for several years. And then some really, really bad shit hit the fan in his life. And he relapsed. But recently, he's sober again. It's about 3 months, but I'm not counting. He's grown in ways that impress me, sometimes confound me. And I've grown too, mostly in ways having to do with knowing that my son is a man. I can't tell him what to do. But that doesn't stop me from coming through with the balloons. Last week, Jonah turned 25. Happy birthday, son. I am learning to let you go. Thank you.